Hey guys, welcome to Yoga with Leona, your site for everything about yoga in breast cancer recovery. I wanted to take a little time today to make a short video to introduce you to the program that we're offering here at Yoga with Leona. So I'm going to explain to you a little background about myself and a little background about yoga and why I think it's especially important for us as cancer survivors and how it can benefit us in so many different ways. So let me just share my screen and we will get started. All right, very nice. So as I mentioned, my name is Leona or Leona Downey. I am a medical doctor, but retired some years ago. I've trained in traditional vinyasa yoga practice as a registered yoga teacher, and also have some training in Y4C or yoga for cancer, which is a special type of yoga or style of yoga designed for cancer survivors. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that as we run through the slides today. So by way of a little bit of background, I worked as a medical oncologist specializing in the treatment of breast cancer for about 10 years in Arizona, first at the University of Arizona, and then later in private practice with a group called Arizona Oncology. And I loved my oncology practice and caring for people with breast cancer and helping them traverse this really challenging experience. And then in, I think it was 2015, I decided to retire a little bit early, and my husband and I moved to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, with plans to sort of change our lives, slow down a little bit, take a little better care of ourselves. And then interestingly, as life has it, a really crazy change happened, and I myself was diagnosed with an aggressive breast cancer. So I underwent treatment for that, including neoadjuvant or preoperative chemotherapy. And that was followed by a bilateral mastectomy and implant reconstruction, and then finally by radiation to the chest wall because the cancer was relatively large and involved lymph nodes at the time of diagnosis. So it was during that time, as I was going through my own cancer treatment, that I realized how amazing the benefits of my yoga practice were in helping me traverse all of the challenges that cancer treatment can bring. I had been a yoga practitioner for some years before my cancer, and even before I retired from medical practice. And during that time, I knew that yoga had a lot of benefits, and I even had some awareness that it could help my patients. But I really had no idea the breadth or the depth or how profound the benefits of this practice could be for people going through cancer until I was going through it myself. And so while I was going through my cancer treatment, I decided that once I was better, I was going to train to become a yoga teacher so that I could share those benefits with others going through a similar experience. So about 6 months after I finished my treatment, I participated in a yoga teacher training here in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And that's a picture of me with my teacher there on the far right. And shortly after that, I started developing trainings for people with cancer to learn how to practice yoga safely, to learn to receive all the different benefits that yoga can bring, regardless of where you are in your cancer experience. So whether you're just diagnosed, or you're in the throes of treatment, or you're coming out the other side of treatment and wanting to start recovering, yoga can help us in so many ways. And so I am hoping to share all of those benefits with you so that you can find similar improvements in your own experience through the help of yoga. And then, as I mentioned, I later received some special training through Y4C, which is short for Yoga for Cancer, which is a special way of delivering yoga to cancer survivors, keeping in mind that safety is of utmost importance. And we want to make sure that cancer survivors feel confident that they are safe as they begin to develop their yoga practice. So that's a little bit about me. Let's talk a little bit about yoga. So what is yoga? So many people, especially here in the West, when we think about yoga, we just think about skinny girls in cute outfits, doing bendy postures with their bodies. And yoga is really so much more than that. Yoga, in brief, is a combination of physical, mental, and spiritual techniques or practices that originated in India. The duration or the time at which yoga practices developed is something of somewhat of a controversy. Yoga, as we think of it today, was really developed not more than 100 or so years ago, but yoga in a broader sense, including meditation practices and things like that, goes back some thousands of years. So it depends on how you define it, exactly how long yoga has been a practice, but a long, long time. People have been experiencing the benefits of yoga all over the world. So the word yoga comes from the root word yuj or yoke, which means to unite or tie together. And again, there are a couple of ways to think about this. So yoga can be thought of as a process or practices that work to unite the body, mind, and spirit. Maybe you could think of it more simply as just a way to unite the breath with the body or breath with movement. Or maybe if you're so inclined, yoga can be thought of as practices that help to unite our individual self, our smaller self, with a universal self or a divine or higher power, if you're so spiritually inclined. But again, it doesn't have to mean that. And people of all different sorts of spiritual practices or traditions can get the benefits of yoga. We'll talk a little more about that in the next slide. So while we think of yoga as just a physical practice, and it does, of course, help us improve the health and flexibility of our bodies, the real practice of yoga is meant to have a deeper benefit. So it's meant to help us cultivate balance and equanimity in our lives, not just in our bodies. It helps us to promote a state of peace or bliss. It helps promote good health in general, and really just a state of harmony within ourselves and with the world around us. So a lovely quote from a yoga teacher named Desika Char, who says, "The success of yoga lies not in the way we perform postures, but in how it positively affects the way we live our lives and our relationships." So the benefits of yoga are so much deeper than the benefits to our body, although of course those are nice and important, especially for us as we're recovering from medical situations. So what else about yoga? As I mentioned, yoga is not a religion. Some people think that if they're not too familiar with the practices. And as I said, yoga has been practiced by people from all different spiritual traditions in all different cultures in the world. So it doesn't matter what your spiritual background is. In fact, many people say that practicing yoga helps them deepen their connection to their own existing spiritual traditions or practices. So whatever those are, it doesn't matter whether you have them or you don't have them. You can practice yoga and get tons of benefits. As I mentioned, yoga is not just the physical practice. We call that asana within the 8 limbs of yoga. So in addition to those physical practices, yoga also incorporates breathing practices, concentration, meditation, as well as guidelines for how we live, the way we think. And these things can help us in so much more than just our physical fitness. So yoga is an overall life philosophy, sort of a lifestyle of practices that bring the whole body and mind together. And this helps us develop this sense of harmony in our overall life, so it can relate to specific parts of our lives, but also to our lives as a whole. So this whole holistic yoga practice is based in something called the 8 limbs of yoga. This is the original written text called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And I'll teach more about that in coming videos, but just so that you know, it is based in this program that was designed by Patanjali many years ago. One yoga teacher I saw giving a TED talk once, she was also a therapist trained in psychotherapy, but also a yoga teacher. She referred to yoga as the original cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's really true. This idea that yoga is so much more than just physical exercises. Yoga is about how we learn to understand ourselves. We learn to understand how our mind works, how the way our mind works affects so much of the way we experience our life and the world around us. And by learning to understand ourselves better and how we operate, we can learn where maybe we could do better and where we could change our behaviors or our habits or our thinking patterns to improve our overall experience. And this is especially true for us as we're going through cancer, because it's such a challenging experience in so many ways. There are many different types of yoga. You might hear different words like hatha or vinyasa yoga, flow yoga, power yoga. There's restorative yoga and gentle yoga. So many different ways that these practices can be used in our lives. And we'll learn more about that as you go through the different videos offered here on my website. So why is yoga good for anyone? Well, as I mentioned, yoga has been practiced for hundreds, if not thousands of years all over the world. And people have been talking about and documenting all of the ways that yoga benefits us. But what's really exciting to me as a scientist and a medical doctor is that yoga has now been studied in really wonderful scientific research and proven to have benefits in all different kinds of ways. So proven benefits of yoga in general include things like improving flexibility, muscle strength, balance, lung function, blood pressure, back and joint pain, improving immune system function, improving our mood, improving things like mental focus and concentration, even memory, and then also improving things like peace of mind, sleep, menopausal symptoms, fatigue, and overall sense of well-being, decreasing inflammation in the body, and so much more. I could go on for hours about all of the benefits of yoga that have been proven in different sorts of medical conditions. So for any or all of these reasons, yoga is good for anyone. But why is it particularly good for us as breast cancer survivors? Well, if you were thinking about that list, as I was mentioning all of the ways that yoga can benefit us, you may have noticed that some of those are particularly helpful for those of us going through cancer. So they might be helpful for cancer-related symptoms or side effects of treatment. So things like menopausal symptoms or joint pain and stiffness, things like inflammation or immune system function, right? Those are all specific challenges that are prominent for us as cancer survivors. Things like bone health or flexibility. For example, if you've had surgery or radiation, you may have decreased range of motion or decreased strength. So yoga can help us in all of those ways. But maybe even more important, I love this about yoga, it's so empowering. It helps us to understand that we don't have to be sort of feeling weak or helpless, that we don't have to be at the whim of our cancer treatment. That doesn't have to boss every aspect of our lives, that in fact, we have the power to take control of part of our lives as we go through this treatment, so we can take back control of our breath, of our bodies, and of our lives in general. So yoga is so amazingly empowering and helps us in so many ways. So in all of these ways, yoga can help us to traverse this crazy cancer experience with less suffering, with more grace and more ease. It can help us recover more quickly and get back to doing the things we like to do. And hopefully, people always talk about, we're just going to have to find our new normal after we go through cancer. And I think in a way that's true, but yoga can help us to make that new normal really even better than our old normal. So we can get stronger. We can be more in touch with ourselves, more connected to our true selves through all of these practices of yoga. So I hope that you will join me in this yoga journey as you yourself are working on recovery. So instead of letting cancer get us down and depressed and angry, we can allow this cancer experience to be an opportunity to see how we can improve our lives and our health. So for example, for me personally, I used to be terrible at eating unhealthy. I drank a Coke for breakfast every day when I was working. And, I never thought too much about it until I went through my cancer experience. And I thought, man, I need to reevaluate some of the things that I do that I just never took that seriously. And so, using cancer as an opportunity to see how you really can make your life better. If you just think about it, and investigate how you run your life. We can allow cancer to be a wake-up call to start taking better care of ourselves in our bodies, in our minds, and in our spirits. It's quite easy, to neglect ourselves, to always be thinking of someone else, or maybe thinking about our job or the other things that we need to do in our lives. We're busy, right? Life is like that. But our health is our own responsibility, and we can do things to optimize it. And these practices of yoga really help us to see more clearly what we're doing and what's working in our lives, and maybe what's not working that well. And where we might seize those opportunities and make simple changes, that'll make us feel better, that'll make us happier, healthier human beings. So, of course, in no way do I mean to suggest that yoga is going to cure our cancer, right? Yoga is not meant as a treatment. It's not going to make the mass go away per se, although there is some interesting recent scientific evidence that suggests it may have very subtle anti-cancer properties. But I am in no way suggesting yoga as an alternative to traditional cancer treatments. I encourage you highly to work with your medical team and to consider all those traditional forms of cancer treatment, like surgery, chemotherapy, hormone therapy, all of those things. But what I'm suggesting is that yoga be an adjunct to those things, and yoga can help us to, recover from some of the side effects that those cancer treatments put us through, and, help us find our way through, help us navigate through this really challenging time in our lives so that we can come out the other side healthier, happier, new people. So how does yoga do all of that, right? That sounds really great, but when things sound too good to be true, sometimes we worry that they are. So how does yoga do it? Well, yoga asana, that's the physical exercises, as well as the other yoga practices. So these behavior modifications and thinking patterns that yoga helps us with, these concentration and meditation practices, all of these yoga practices help us optimize our health in body, mind, and spirit. So I like to think of it in those three different realms, although of course they all overlap and work together. So yoga helps us in our body by improving strength, muscle tone, flexibility, endurance. It helps our lungs and our heart and our cardiovascular systems be healthier. It helps us sleep better. It helps our immune system. And all of these things can be helped in the body by these simple yoga practices. It's amazing, right? These simple things that you can do in the privacy of your own home can help in all of these dramatic ways. Yoga also helps our mind. And I really think this is one of the biggest ones for us as cancer survivors, because cancer experience is so challenging mentally. So yoga can help us build resilience. It can help us find more peace in the midst of our challenging experiences. It can help us find contentment in the midst of challenging experiences. It can help decrease stress and improve our mood. So in all of those ways, it helps our mind. And then finally, it can help our spirit. Cancer can be a really soul jarring experience, right? It shakes everything, including, making us worry about our longevity and our life in general. So yoga can help us kind of heal our spirits. When our bodies and our minds are healthy, that spiritual well-being just kind of follows naturally. So in all of these ways, yoga can help us as we recover from cancer and cancer treatment. So when most people think about yoga, they think first about the physical asana practice. And that's how I found my way to yoga too. And I think that starting with the physical parts of the yoga practice is a great way to start. This physical yoga practices are a great training ground to start training our bodies and training our minds to respond to the challenges and the stresses of cancer and normal life challenges as well, to learn how to respond to those things with more calm and ease, so that every challenge that we go through, we encounter it a little more easily. It's not so, crazy and throwing us into these kind of whirlwinds of stress and distress. So this allows us, to respond to everything in our life a little more easily and makes us happier as we move through, the normal ups and downs of life a little more easily. So as I mentioned, I like to think of the benefits of yoga in these sort of three different realms. So you can see in the upper left, the physical recovery, all of these different ways that yoga helps us recover in our bodies. So strength and flexibility, it helps reduce things like lymphedema and improve our body's immune reactions. It helps our nervous system. So I think of this as the benefits of stretching our body. And then in the upper right, you can think of the mental recovery, helping cultivate things like acceptance of our situation, finding some peace and contentment, cultivating self-love, instead of being frustrated or having some animosity for our bodies, to learn to love ourselves and everything that we're going through, to find that mental resilience. I think of this as how yoga quiets our mind. And then finally, the spiritual recovery, finding some grace and some faith in whatever it is. It can be, your own spiritual tradition, or just kind of faith in yourself. However it works for you, yoga can help you. So I think about this as finding our grace. And in all of these ways, yoga comes together to help us celebrate our life and to build that new you. So that all sounds great, but how do we do it? How do we get started? So the first most important thing is to know that yoga practice is accessible no matter where you are. So no matter what your treatment has done to your body, maybe you have other medical problems too, regardless of where you're starting. A famous yoga teacher once said, if you can breathe, you can do yoga. And that's really true. So we can have modifications for anything that you need. And so if you're someone who's got really complicated physical or medical situation, contact me and I can help you to really develop those modifications so that you can find and make your yoga practice accessible wherever you are. But we do need to be cautious, of course. And as we say in medicine, primum non nocere, or first do no harm. So we need to make sure that as we start our yoga practice, we are careful, we are cautious and aware of what our bodies have been through and where we need to be careful, where we need to exercise special caution. So that's where things like my training in Y4C and my medical background make me a great, option for you, to help you to really safely begin your yoga practice. So again, let me know if I can help. And this is, especially if breast cancer surgeries and other treatments are recent and you're healing and you're worried, that maybe yoga is not for you. It is. We just have to be careful and know how to safely proceed. And so the best way to avoid injury in yoga comes from that original text on yoga, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali that I mentioned at the beginning. And this particular sutra says Thira Sukha Asanam, and that translates to yoga must balance effort and ease, or strength and softness, or toughness and grace. And so unlike other forms of exercise where it's like, just go, 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 and push as hard as you can, an important thing about yoga is this idea of balancing effort and ease. So we don't push so hard that we tear our hamstring, right? Or tear open some healing incisions. We find this perfect balance between effort and ease, and we learn to really connect with ourselves and tune in to where we are so that we can understand where that balance point is. And this trains us to be healthier in the rest of our life too, right? so that we understand exactly how much we can push and where we need to back off. And so yoga is beautiful at training us in this way to safely move forward. As your body's ready, you'll feel as you become stronger or a little more flexible, you'll see, because you'll also be developing more connection to yourself as you move through this process. So in other words, we start slow and we progress gently and we listen to our body, and that allows us to build our yoga practice. So one important thing for me as I got back to my yoga practice is I wanted to get back to a full, strong practice. I didn't want to say, oh, well, since I've had cancer and I have these scars and this tightness from radiation, I'll just do the gentle practice. Gentle practice is amazing and it's so good in so many ways, but we don't have to just relegate ourselves only to the gentle practice. You can build back a full, strong practice if that's what you want to do. So I'm here to help you. And, I felt so empowered as I built back my own strong yoga practice after going through all of these really hard treatments and, having challenges myself. And so I just want to share with you so that you can empower yourself on this yoga journey, on this cancer recovery. Hopefully you have been inspired by understanding a little better about what yoga is and how it can help you. Here are a couple of examples of, understanding the anatomy of certain yoga postures can help us as we understand what our bodies have been through in breast cancer. So for example, on the left there, that's Warrior 2 or Virabhadrasana 2. And you can see that, they're stretching across the front side of your body and your chest. And that's where those of us who've had breast cancer surgery, we might have some scar tissue and some tightening. And so helping you understand what it is that your body's been through, where those challenges are, and how to modify your practice can help you just, develop easily and work through those tightnesses and those, areas that might be painful or limiting to you after cancer surgery. But, as you understand it, you can work through it and you can build back all of that strength and flexibility. So I'm here to help you do that. All right. So thank you for your time and for listening. And please let me know if you have any questions, shoot me an email or, check out my website. It's just www.yogawithleona.com. You've probably found that, and that's how you got to this video in the first place. But anyway, thanks again for your time. Look forward to practicing with you and helping you as you continue on your own yoga in cancer recovery journey. All right.